Hello, welcome back to Colony Kids SOS. For those who haven't watched, in this interview series, Colony Kids SOS is an interview series for the local creative talents, artists, and friends in our community, started in April 2020. Today, we are very happy to invite Eunice Tsang, and local art curator, artist, art journalist. So, for those who may not know you, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. First, thank you for inviting me, guys. Really honored to be here. I'm Eunice Tsang, and as you said, I'm kind of a slasher. I do a lot of stuff. I started as an artist, but then also I worked as an art journalist. I like to write, and then I also produce. I produce some art documentaries at RTHK, and then currently I'm at Present Projects, which is an art space I founded with Wing Shya, the photographer, and I mainly do the curation and I manage the space, which includes mopping the floor and everything. Yes.
Really? So before we going deep about your practice, and just we'd like to ask, how do you feel now? Because considering the changes in Hong Kong and also the world about in the pandemic and also all different kinds of social changes, how do you feel now?
Right now, currently.
Yeah, right now.
To be honest, quite a bit anxious. Like there's always a bit of stress. I feel Hong Kong is like that. There's always a stress to produce and do something. But at the same time, I'm learning to be a bit more zen and just go with the flow with so many uncertainties. I think that's like the new norm. Like we just have to live with the uncertainties and not be able to plan every single moment of my life.
Yeah. It's just like how we started this interview series during the pandemic. So to react that all the physical event cannot be held, and we need to go digital and explore the other possibility. And since you mentioned that you are currently running the space called Present Project with Wing Shya, and we would like to know more about the space, because it's not just like in traditional art gallery, that you also showcase and selling the artist scene and artist product, different kind of product, and also collaborate with different kind of maybe local magazine like Yap Yap. So can you tell us more about that, how this space is aimed to show, and how it's different than other kind of traditional art space in Hong Kong?
So it kind of started from last July, I think. Just by chance, by some friend's introduction, I met Wing Shya, the photographer, and of course I knew about him and his work for a long time. So apparently he was looking for someone to run this space or come up with some exhibition ideas, and the space just happened to be right across my home, and I've seen it being built since like 3 years ago. So Present Projects is his name, like he came up with this. But the curation and like how we do the exhibitions, the idea is that we want to fill in the cracks of what the Hong Kong art scene has, which is like mostly populated by big museums or institutions like government or like big ones like Tycoon, and commercial galleries, which so there's not a lot of in-between spaces. There are a couple, and I was also really inspired by a lot of them, say for example like a South Host, Batek Gongyun, and these kind of like small artist-run DIY projects. Like I find them especially like energizing. So the idea started from that, and then we thought we want to not just do contemporary art, because there's a certain sense of like hierarchy and like a system where like what is it? What is artist? What is contemporary? Who are the artists there? Blah blah blah. But there's actually a lot of people, creatives, who fall out of this boundary. So me and Wing, we wanted to work more with, say, photographers and even craftspeople, textiles, design, filmmakers. So just basically everything creative. And we felt that there's no need to have a boundary. And it's something that I guess I really believe in, because I think all these are just basically mediums. It's like a different international languages, but you can still be researching and talking about the same thing, but just in different mediums. So you come up with different ways of images or production or sounds, anything. So yeah, we decided to do, say, like 1 or 2 shows. Every 1 or 2 months we do a show to fit in this year. And apart from the shows, we also have a small shop. And the shop is populated with artist magazines, as you saw, publications, ceramics. Basically, the idea is everything is handmade by artists or designer friends. They are not like industrially produced. So everything is very limited, maybe just a few hundred copies at most. So especially for ceramics, they're all handmade. So the idea is that these things are all made by artists and designers when they are, say, working a full-time job, but they still want to produce something small to sell. But at the same time, they're not really artworks per se, so they're still very affordable. Like everything is below $1,000. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah, and they kind of complement each other, because with every show we also try to work with artists to make some limited edition. Like we made some face masks with a Taiwanese artist, or we made some cups, like just random utilitarian things. Yeah, so I start from that.
Yeah, since you mentioned that 白尺公園 by South Pole, and I also know that there's some other this kind of maybe artist-run space in Sham Shui Po, like Hub There, like Paris Space, and also nowadays there are many like local craftsman shop, like those one with leathers or shop, different kind of this kind of craft shop happen in Sham Shui Po, and many cafes that open in Sham Shui Po. And there's a saying that Sham Shui Po is the new Brooklyn, and that Sham Shui Po has been changed a lot, because there's like a new wave for Manting or different kind of hipster has moved into Sham Shui Po, or this kind of cultural changes in maybe this the one of the most grassroots neighborhood in Hong Kong that have been changed in very vibrant in culture. And how do you feel about these changes, and how do you feel about the community in Sham Shui Po has been changing a lot, or how the neighborhood is kind of maybe adapting to it? Do you feel many maybe the neighbors will come into the exhibition to visit the show maybe?
Yeah, it's definitely a very complex issue. It's not black or white, and like also creates a lot of complex feelings. Like so I've been a fan of Sham Shui Po since I was in high school. Like, because my school was in Jordan, like actually just opposite DGS. So after school, like I would go to Sham Shui Po just to walk around, even though my mom said it's like very dangerous, be careful. But like I never seen like scary people there. I just found it so exciting. And then so when I was like grown up and I finally like lived by myself, so like I really wanted to live in Sham Shui Po, and I lived in like different spots, like from near Garden Bakery to near Tong Mei, like different areas. And then like for the past 3-4 years, definitely I noticed a lot more like cafes and bookshops, and like it's still very exciting, I think. Yeah, and you see how how the creativity stems. Like maybe there's one style, one aesthetic that comes up first, and then you slowly like see different shops maybe copying bits and pieces from here and there. In some ways it's very frustrating as well, because you can tell, some don't feel genuine. And I think it kind of speaks to what you said, like a manteng or ai manteng. And I think there's been a lot of discussion also, what is manteng anyway, or ai manteng? Like we are also kind of manteng, man ai teng lin. And then I don't remember who said it, but there was one that quote I thought kind of makes sense. It's saying that I think manteng are consumers of culture who want to pretend that they're also producers of culture. And it's something like that. So obviously maybe it's it's kind of an interesting like a diversion of what does it mean to produce and to consume culture, arts and culture. So I think that's why we always have this general frustration with people who always da cat, right? Because for us, it feels very fake. Like you come here, you don't even look closely at the artwork or text or anything, but you just take a photo as if you absorbed it, as if you looked at it. But you only look at it through the selfie lens, reflected, right? It becomes a backdrop. So, I mean, I can't help it, but maybe it's also a good way for people to kind of get in touch with more of these spaces. So I mean, I'm still open to that. Like, I guess it's inevitable. Maybe it's just another way for the public to engage with art. Maybe it has to start with this kind of, I don't know, is it self-reflection? Not really. Maybe lack of self-reflection. I don't know. But after starting this space, I also got way closer with a lot of other friends who run independent spaces around there, or like shops or restaurants around there, which is like super lovely. And it's one of the best things, like being able to just go downstairs and then like bump into friends who are working there and then just get lunch or dinner together, or like just hopping over to someone's space and like having a whole night of drinks and chats. And I think this sense of community is what really ties me to that place. Like, even though there is like not a perfect place, obviously nowhere is perfect. And it's this gentrification is definitely something we discuss amongst ourselves a lot, because we are super aware that we are also definitely taking part in this. And what are the things that we can do to avoid it going in a certain direction? Because gentrification happens everywhere. It's a universal thing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It's not black or white. And I think it's really hard to compare it to other places like Brooklyn or anything, because it's all contextual, right? So I mean, Sham Shui Po will have its own way, but I think my friend told me that it was slowly turned into something like Wan Chai, like the Eaton Avenue, which is but before that happens in this like short amount of time, like because things are so uncertain now, I don't even know like how long any of us has in any certain place. So I guess the best thing we can do is just be as genuine as we can, and like work with as many people, and like treat them well, like pay them, and like all labor has to be paid, right? And work in ways that are as fair and equal as possible in this amount of time.
I can feel that what you say about genuine, that to the neighborhood, to the community, and I also feel that Sham Shui Po is kind of a space that we can provide a accessible rent for the artists and the local designer community, that also to bring the art to the neighborhood instead of just to very high-end places like Zhongwan. And as I know that you have been working in Tycoon since its establishment, so you are one of the founding members. So what do you feel about this kind of model, working in a very big institution and in a very privileged neighborhood in Zhongwan, and comparing with running an independent space in Sham Shui Po? That which model do you like more? or maybe not more, but how do you feel about that?
I think whichever place that gives me freedom is the best. Maybe because I'm Leo, I don't know. So I don't know. I think I love both. Like, working at Tycoon, definitely a privilege, and so lucky to be there even before it opened to public. I learned so much because I was, I think, kind of fresh grad at that time, and just learning little things that you never even learn from art school where I studied. Like, it's like a bubble when you're in art school. But then once you start working, there's so many technical stuff that you realize. For example, even from drafting contracts with artists, like I would never have learned to do it or read it. But it's so useful and protective for everyone, actually. And in Tycoon, it's really amazing because they can achieve that international standard that I think none other institutions so far in Hong Kong has, maybe apart from M+, obviously. And that requires a lot of manual power and money, of course, but also the vision. Like, I think what's so important I learned there is from Tobias and Shred, like the curators there, their vision of what the space could become and how to use space. So that part was really incredible. And then, but with me starting like a very tiny space is like total opposite, because it's just me running it. Though I do have some funding support, which is very, very lucky for this year. I very appreciate that. But I also like not being able to to do things super perfectly. Like everything is so DIY, like from wiping the floors, like artists have to help. For example, for the Yep Yep show you saw, like we try to make green lights. If it's in usual tycoon, we would go buy the neon lights, we would have the seafood install it, but we simply just bought the green gel and then we just tape it there, and it's like it looks really bad. But in the end, I realized it's fine. Like I think what I was talking with a friend today, like when you're poor, you realize what your priorities are, and it's totally true because you can't do everything if you're alone and with limited budget. So you realize what are the most important things. So I think that's the main difference. But also because I work alone, it's really nice to have that autonomy where I can just quickly decide and do things, because I'm quite a impulsive person as well, and I just really like action. I just want to do things. I can't stand doing like all day meetings, even though I love talking to people. So the good thing is like I can choose who I work with, like I meet a lot of young artists like you, and then just have discussions on how to do things. And it's very easy. Like I can just give you a key and then you just do your stuff. So, but it also requires a lot of trust, obviously. But I really like that. It's almost like a living room that I have to manage. It's like my own living room. And so for example, this show, for the current show, Fault Lines, we had 2 weeks in between. Oh, this is another thing. Like in Tycoon, you have a long time to prepare installing, deinstalling. You have a lot of seafoods coming in. But in a small space, we only have like a short time of turnover, because I'm so aware that I only have this space for a short amount of time. So I want to fit in everything as tight as possible, which is maybe not very healthy for me, but whatever. So, but this time the show, I had like 2 weeks in between. So I gave all the artists keys and they could come in whenever they want. So it's kind of like a shared studio. It became a shared studio for like 1 or 2 weeks. And it was so lovely. It's like the best installation experience we all had. So something like that I really treasure.
Yeah. I really like you mentioned that you think the space is kind of like a living room, that it's like a place that everybody lives in and just create what they want instead of very cold and distancing art space with a lot of brand space and a lot of docents standing here to watching you if you touch the artwork. So I really like the closeness of your space. And you also mentioned that you're a person that you will do the things before you think, not the extroverting, but you will take the action first before thinking that. So I'm curious about you as a curator, that how do you come up an exhibition, that how it begins, maybe do you think about the theme, or maybe artists or artwork, or how does it grow into the final product that we all experience?
Yeah, I think I mean impulsive in the sense that like I do think about it a lot. I do worry about things a lot, but I think impulsive in the sense, compared with Tycoon, like there's such a big team of people, that marketing, like I don't know, FM, whatever, like you have to discuss with every single party in order to do something. But when I'm alone, like if I want to do this show and I can figure out how to do it budget-wise, artist-wise, then I can just do it, right? Because Wing is super lovely. He doesn't really, he just lets me go. So so far all the shows, they all come from conversations that I have with artists or friends. Some are like maybe almost a whole year of conversation. For example, the current show with South and Andy, who have both works in the small gallery. Like these works, they actually started in January before I even opened. Because as friends, they kind of knew, I invited them over to check out the space, just to chat before I opened. And then they already immediately come up with some site-specific works that they wanted to make, and they couldn't do somewhere else. So immediately we could be impulsive and say, okay, let's just do it. Let's figure out what show it is later. But so that's why it took a long time, like 9 months, to connect the dots of these different ideas that different artists approach at different times, and then how to connect it to become one coherent show. And then also there are some other artists like Batten and Camp who made the room installation. I actually maybe just asked them to join a show 1 week before, and just invite them after seeing their open studio, and they were like super creative and they immediately come up with something in the room. So it really varies, and I think it's so exciting in this way because everyone is so connected, but the conversation varies so much from 1 year ago to maybe just 1 week ago. But in the end, everything still come together. And I think mostly it falls down to a lot of trust to the artists. And I think they also trust me a lot, which I really appreciate. Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, since you have talked about the current exhibition Fault Line, with how it grows with the artist conversation, and I would like to know more about the concept, the theme behind the show. Can you maybe
Sure.
describe a bit about that?
Yeah, it's been something I've been mulling over for a long time, how to do a show that's about, we always talk about shifting grounds recently, like in news and everything. So I was thinking a lot, grounds, like geography. And then South Ho, he approached me to do this brick work ages ago. So there's some connections about gravity and the ground and what we're standing on and the uncertainty of it. So one day I was hiking in Sai Kung actually with a friend, and then there were some caves, like the geological park, and then I saw one sign that is explaining fault lines, and there's a map of Hong Kong, blurry map of Hong Kong with a lot of like lines cutting through it, and then saying this is the fault lines of Hong Kong. It's like, oh wow, this is a cool name, fault lines. It's very short, direct, but also the word fault has a duality in it, where it can kind of insinuate a kind of arguments or misalignment of ideas, which is kind of what the fault lines is. So it's a geological phenomenon where when the tectonic plates are shifting, the ground is moving, and when the rocks move apart, there are some cracks that appear on the ground. And they can vary from really tiny cracks to like a massive chasm, massive crack that you see in like an earthquake. So I thought this is like a perfect metaphor for a lot of things that we've been thinking about, like with a lot of artists I'm talking to. So that's why we use fault lines as a metaphor for artists to bounce ideas off. So some of them are talking about it in a more maybe social sense. For example, like when you have arguments, how do you mend the cracks? Do you try to solve them, or do you just leave them be and it turns into something else? And then some are more playing with material. So in the show there are lots of construction materials like zip tie, concrete, grouts, jasmonite, bricks. So some are also kind of invisible works like case, fishing net. And it's more like a physical show. I want it to be quite experience and installation based, which is also what I really want to do in the space like present projects, because it's a weird space. It doesn't have a lot of proper walls. As you saw, the walls are quite moldy, or it's like glass, or it's like curtain. Like nothing is stable in there. There are no straight lines. So I thought this is a perfect time to do something more like installation based. Basically that's how it came together.
Yeah, because you, not just as a curator in the show, you are also an artist in the show, because I knew you in the beginning as a curator. So I feel like it's kind of have a certain dynamic that if you are an artist and also a curator, that your art practice kind of influence your curatorial practice, or your curatorial practice maybe have influenced your art practice, like the vice versa. And I feel like how you are using those to how to say that the crack in the floor that you are cleaning it, and how the process that developed that. Do you think about you want to be an artist in this show first, or maybe you want to curate the show and suddenly you feel that I can be in part of it and make some artwork, and how this kind of identity keeps shifting in your head,
Yeah, definitely something I've been thinking a lot, because I also have my own practice, my own other studio that I shared with Lily before when I also opened PP. But I was trying to keep it kind of separate, because for my own practice it's like kind of formal paintings, also with textiles that I was trying to develop. But then also I wanted to do PP with like group shows that are mostly with other people. So I didn't want to be too didactic, or I don't want to be totalitarian and tell people what to do, because that would become commission. So in a way I was trying to separate, but I think a lot of people also told me like, oh, but everything you do, like from the wall paint to like your website to the logo, everything is you. Like in a sense it's also true, because I guess in the beginning when I was building this, I had to decide all these things. So after a while I thought, oh, okay, maybe like as an art practice, like even this curatorial practice can be art practice. And there's definitely many things I'm into, like production or conceptually, that are related as well. Because before, like when I was doing my paintings, they were all related to jokes, like humor. How can I tell a very serious joke about things that are very traumatic? And then so in June, we did a show with Tiffany Leung that is Only a Joke Can Save Us. So kind of those things were related. So people who actually went to my studio before, like actually most people didn't know I have a studio. They were saying, oh, why is not your work not in here? Like it totally fits. And then I was, I didn't even think to put it in it because I thought it would be, is it very egoistic to be artist and curator? Because I know there are two groups of people. Some think that like the curator must not put your own work in it. And then some are, it's fine, it's the same thing. So I think it took me a few months to get through that. So a lot of people also ask, why don't you just use the space? You can do your own show there, you know? But I was always afraid of looking too narcissistic. But then after a while, because since... so actually, I stopped renting the studio because I simply didn't have time to go to Kwai Hing. So I was working on PP, but actually a lot of the time there were lots of ideas and conversations that made me want to paint again or make work again. And then it's only with this show that suddenly I think the things fit together. Like I wanted to make this floor piece that is regrouting the floor, like with the blue lines in between the tiles. So it's kind of like a painting as well, but also it's something that is almost like set in stone, like pun intended. And as a metaphor of me just taking care of the space anyway. I mean, it's kind of similar to what I do every day. Like I sit in the shop anyway, so why don't I just actually do something, right? do something even more labor intensive. So I think just for this show, it really makes sense. And I don't have to feel like embarrassed about it anymore. Like the Eunice of the past would be like, you can't do that. But I think, time is short. Like who knows? Like why not just fuck it and do it, right? Yeah.
I really like you saying that you're painting that those cracks is like you're painting on the canvas, and I'm wondering that how do you start your art journey? Do you still remember your first encounter with art when you as a kid? That how do you fall in love with art?
Wow. I think probably from my mom. My mom was a very creative person. She's a nurse, but she would we would do lots of drawings together when I was a kid. She made lovely drawings of me and my sister, and then maybe it's not really art per se, but more like creativity. The part where my mom is really street smart. So I remember, for example, doing those textbook. Writing the words A, B, 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 B. So sometimes I would write it wrong or something, and then my mom would say, "Oh, it's okay. You don't have to erase it. Like if you do a stroke here, you're like you can turn this word into another one." So sometimes if I do a misspelling, she will. I don't know how. Like I don't even remember, but the cursive, she would do some strokes and then suddenly it becomes another word. I was like, that's so smart. Like I can do that, so I don't have to change my homework or something like that. And so partly is from her drawing. She did a lot of DIY crafts. She did marbling, made our shoes, made a lot of stuff. And it was mostly this experimental attitude and like not being afraid of making mistakes that really was so encouraging. And kind of starting from there, I always knew that I was really into like literature and art. And that's why I went to study this, and going into UK, mainly focusing on these subjects was really eye-opening as well, because I think how the education system there is so different from Hong Kong. So when I was here at school, I was really into it, but I didn't feel like as expanded. But then when I studied there, like everything was so free. Like as long as you can like explain it or have some context for it, I think you can basically do anything. And that was so freeing for me. Yeah, so I think it's mostly process of elimination that I know what I want to do, because I was just so bad at math, so bad at chemistry. Like I don't even bother. Like why do I put time into it when I can just do one thing well? So that's my idea anyway. Yeah.
Since you mentioned that you study in UK, that for us, besides the freedom in the education system, do you feel the environment, maybe the city and the community in London has changed you in maybe your practice of your life or anything?
Definitely. It's not even like textbook stuff, but more like life experience and so on. I think one of my first encounters that kind of maybe present projects that, or an artist run space was from that experience was I think a lot of friends at that time they were living in strange places, like not just houses, but in London you can live in like different buildings, weird buildings, like post office or something, abandoned houses or something. So I remember there was some art classmates who did a show in like a unused or misused kindergarten, and it was so weird. But for me, it's like, what? Like I remember seeing. I don't remember the art, but I remember walking through the rooms and seeing like the kids' toilets, and like this is like so weird. Like, but you can do an art show here, and I think that was always in the back of my mind because in Hong Kong I never see something like that. Even now, like if you have an independent art space, it's usually in a studio, in an industrial building, or like a shop. There's not. Yeah, I want to see a kindergarten art space. That would be amazing. Yeah, so definitely London changed everything. It was formative, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like present project have this kind of accent too. I have never seen art space in a Tong Lao, that kind of setting you need to go up, yeah. Because back into Hong Kong, do you feel the city has inspired you a lot, and can you find maybe different sense of art community here? Because in London you have so much freedom, people can use abandoned places because there are not many abandoned places in the urban area in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is so crowded. It's all the art space, all the independent art space is quite small. I think comparing with you, like those in Fu Da Lao is quite small. And yeah, how do you feel this kind of sense of space or in Hong Kong?
Yeah, definitely space and rent is always the main issue. It's like the root of all evil in Hong Kong, the rent. But definitely like this free market and like a super uber capitalistic atmosphere in Hong Kong also drives a lot of creativity, especially in like more like anarchist or like cult art spaces. And I find that super inspiring as well, or like especially with the fast technology and all that. So even like your show, like in Video Touch, I find that like that's something that you would see, I think, just in Hong Kong because of Sham Shui Po and all that. And for example, a space like why Sham Shui Po is so amazing is that there's such diversity in such a small hood. And what I love is like, for example, just a street of, I don't know how many blocks, maybe like 5 blocks, like a street that is so small. You can already have maybe 10 to 15 different kind of shops, from textile to Japanese ramen to like pet shop to a groomer, barber shop, and most importantly the Mgam Po 5, is it 5 metal Mgam? No, 5 gold shop, no, metal shop, hardware shop, sorry, hardware shop. Like for me, these are my favorite places. So I think why I love having a space in Sham Shui Po is also because of that. Like, I just love going downstairs and just go down to buy a screw or just ask the sifu like how to solve some problem, and then like chat with them. It's just so fun. And I think in Central or in other hoods, like I don't feel as inspired. But in Sham Shui Po, even like some kind of, I don't know, DIY vernacular sign that they draw, or a makeshift chair, like everything is so creative, but they don't, maybe like not everyone notice, or the makers don't even think about it. It's just a necessity for them. But for us, where we have the privilege and time to look at it in that sense, for me is so exciting. Yeah, more than something that is very beautifully produced and like pristine. Something DIY for me is even more exciting,
Yeah. You mentioned that you can see, I feel like you can see the beauty for very daily practice, like the sifu or maybe making some craft. And I'm wondering what is beauty means to you. That, yeah, it's not necessary. Need to very particular answer that is very, there's no correct answer, but how do you feel? Do you feel that kind of very daily layman night you can see that kind of beauty, or maybe very since you are working in Tai Kung, there's very high-end art, that kind of beauty. Yeah, what do you think about beauty, or maybe aesthetic?
Beauty, actually maybe it's so boring, but like beauty is maybe not even in, I don't maybe not even in art. Maybe beautiful art is not something that most excites me. So immediately when I think beauty, I'm thinking of like when I go hiking or when I go to a park or seeing the trees and sky. Like that is the first thing that comes to mind. So maybe I don't even directly have to relate beauty to art. You know what I mean? But if you ask in terms of like the art sense, the beauty of art, I think it's when something that is seemingly very simple or minimal or banal, but actually holds so much meaning in it. When there's a lot of context that you understand behind the work, for me that is super beautiful. So for example, Kay's work of enmesh, like the silver and gold wire, which you almost don't even see when you go in, that for me is so beautiful, even though it slowly gets torn and distorted. Or for example, Andy Lee's work where he does the 16mm film of our space in before we open. If you look at it, it's very banal. It's just him walking along the space. But actually when you understand that the tape, it's not the tape, the film itself is the same measurement of the perimeter of the space. So something like this for me is so beautiful. It's like very touching. There's some part that is very economic in the sense that they use very simple ideas, very banal things, but actually there's so much weight behind. And I think if we can see that in like maybe daily life things, like there's so much building or like a pipe we don't maybe it's like nothing, right? But if the maker behind it actually holds some kind of stories or I don't know, process or meaning behind that, for me that part is very beautiful.
I do agree with you that maybe the very minimal and banal things that we can appreciate how people will work so hard on it and build it. And because I feel like doing art, not just doing art, maybe doing many things is very hard in Hong Kong because different kind of struggle. So do you feel making art in Hong Kong, what is your biggest struggle? And the money, the space, or anything that making you struggle more?
You mean like for my own art practice?
Or maybe as a curator or art producer?
Yeah, definitely starts with space and rent. Rent is the root of all evil, I have to say again. So definitely this. And apart from this, I don't know, I feel like once I solve rent, I will solve everything. But like so at least for the art space now, but for art practice, I think it's also, because it's such a personal thing, maybe for running an art space, like if I work with other people, I feel half of the time is dedicated to living with that person. Maybe not like living physically together, but like vicariously with the person, like helping, like discussing, helping their ideas come true. Like part of it is production as well. But then separate from my art practice, it means that I have to only talk with myself and I enter this black hole, and sometimes I'm really really like I don't want to fall into that. But at the same time, I think working on your own art, you have to be comfortable with being lonely or being like self-absorbed for a while, because you have to enter your own world. And I think maybe just for now, I'm still more excited about working with other people, as in me being part of one team. But maybe sometimes I get the sense that I just want to lock myself in a room and just do paintings again that I don't have to show anyone. But it's just another language of talking about things that I cannot express through words.
It's kind of funny that you describe you doing your own art as like self-absorbed or maybe fall into a black hole. Do you feel that this kind of can I say that a kind of maybe sound very negative energy that is push your art practice forward, or maybe is this kind of pressure that maybe or worries or different kind of things that push your art practice? And how do you deal with this kind of difficulties, that this kind of emotion? Do you have any ways to revitalize yourself after that? Maybe you are locking down yourself and for a whole night don't talk to anyone, just focus on your art. Do you feel kind of
I think so. Like making art or the painting, and also, for example, even writing for me is like such an individual thing. And I think it's very negative because it's like I feel so anxious when I'm preparing to make stuff. Like Or when I'm making, it's not like I just, okay, today I'm gonna paint and then I just paint. It's not like that, right? Like you make the canvas and then I sit there, oh shit, okay, I prepared the canvas now, what do I do? Like it's a lot of that. It's a lot of thinking and like, am I sure I want to do this? Is this what I do? But maybe, of course, I'm overthinking, which I'm sure I am. But I think it's just the anxiety. Also, I feel like in Hong Kong, I have so much pressure, and I see from everyone as well, like to be always outward facing. Like, oh, I produced this, I make this. Recently, I have a show. This is what I did. But if I have to do my writing or painting, it means having to maybe not show anyone anything for maybe even months or years. And I think that part makes me anxious also because when I focus on it, it's very hard for me to multitask on other stuff. But then I need to work, I need to do something else, but I cannot afford having this time to only work on one thing that requires so much energy. So maybe I just haven't gone to that stage. Maybe if there's a residency or maybe if I go into quarantine, then maybe I can do that.
Yeah, since you have so many identity that as an artist and also as an curator, and I saw you have achieved many things this year that you opened like 3 or 4 shows in present project. So, but what do you think about what is your biggest realization of this year? That what is the project most satisfying to you?
Well, I think the whole thing, I see it kind of as a whole. Because, of course, each show is kind of like a different chapter. But I think I just feel super lucky even having this whole space for 1 year and having the kindness of strangers and like supporters. One thing that is most proud, I think just... because like this year when I started, I gave myself a challenge. Like, okay, now I have this space. I need to push myself to my like limits, like totally limit. Like I don't care, like if no sleep or like if I don't do other stuff that I like to normally do, but I just really wanted to see how much I could physically do. So I feel this year I kind of really achieved that. Like I did most of the shows that I wanted to do, all the people that I want to work with. I didn't get into arguments with anyone, I think. Like, like everything is very collaborative and like just learning also about like how much trust is important when working with people. So I think it's important to surround yourself with good energy people, good temperament people that support you, and just learning that I cannot please everyone. And as I said, like when you're poor, when you have limited effort, like you realize what are the things you prioritize, right? So I think this is also one thing. Like before, I was really trying to please everyone and kind of, in a sense, losing a bit of my personality or because of that. But then when I become more clear, more focused what I need to do, then I realize it's like energy is spent better, you know.
I'm glad to hear that you're focusing on yourself, and prioritize, and what kind of people you need to, collaborating with. And since your show and present project, and also you are as an art journalist and interviewing many different kind of creative talents, and what do you think about this generation in Hong Kong, comparing maybe the older one, or maybe comparing with the kids in London, and how do you feel? Is there a kind of accents or maybe characteristic of this kind of youth in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I think kids. Do you mean kids not like me, my generation, or your generation? Like we are.
Our
like
generation.
How old are we apart? I don't know. I think we are all like very energetic. We are like, what do you call it? Hangdong, like the action, like the energy for like producing and like getting things into movement is so strong. I think because we are all aware, especially after protests and COVID times, like we realize things are so impermanent, like things change, and I have so many friends moving around, like even so many friends having the courage to just up and move without maybe like a secure job, you know, something like this for me is like, wow, so empowering. And I think even I don't know how to compare, but it just seems like we have a lot of urgency. We realize that if we want to do something, let's just do it, and this can't wait until you earn enough money, can't wait until you have like the right credentials or anything. And yeah, I find that really exciting. I feel like even when I look at you, when I look at so many people doing their own stuff, even if it's different trajectories, I think that's very inspiring. And yeah, I don't know about London. I need to go there now and check it out. I feel like when I was there 7 years ago, it's a very different time, like pre-Brexit and pre-Bojo and all that. So I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, we're thinking about going back to London or maybe other countries in the coming future.
I really, really want to go because my boyfriend in Italy, he works in theater, and I think that's also super exciting. Of course, theater is like a total different trajectory, different people. But they're starting some artist residencies there, and I think it could be a really exciting opportunity to go and maybe bring some Hong Kong artists over there, which is what I'm thinking for next summer. And of course, I really want to go to Venice and document and see my friends over there. And maybe if there's some way to bring some Hong Kong artists to do residencies over there in Trieste, which is 1 hour away from Venice, I think that's really exciting because in some sense, I only just realized, like, when you move to another country outside of Hong Kong is so baby, it's so small, right? So it's a child. So, for example, when I went to Italy to visit him, like, just walking down the street, you suddenly see, oh, this is like a Roman column. Oh, this is like a leftover tree from some emperor, like, from the Roman times. And then suddenly, like, it's the historical time is so expanded. Like, in Hong Kong, like, when we opened Tycoon, like, oh, wow, this is from 1940 something, and then it's already so exciting, right? But then actually there's so much behind that I feel like sometimes I cannot experience here, but only unfortunately in other places. So it's something I'm looking forward to, actually. Yeah.
Besides looking forward to travel to other city to maybe go to biennial, do you have any project upcoming can share with us we can look forward to in the coming month or maybe next year?
Yeah, so in December probably we will have some art markets, and then we're working with MC Yan. Probably we'll do some singing bowl, like meditation style stuff. And then next year, super excited because we're doing a show with Ellie Wong Ki-yi, amazing performance artist. And the show is called WOW, like Which is Own Without. And it's kind of a show about witchcraft, shamanism, and its relation with feminism, and like creating your own systems of beliefs and like empowering. And I think this will be a super exciting show. And then also in talk with some other friends like Nick and some artists from Tokyo. Like one is a Japanese duo artist who makes wigs. I don't know if you know about them, called Tomihiro. They mostly work with fashion, but so we were supposed to do a show this year together, but they suddenly had to postpone. But the reason for postponing is very exciting. It's because Bjork commissioned them to make 30 wigs, and then they will ask her to send them over. So like, I was like, oh my god! Like, you can take all the time you want. I just want to like touch the scalp of Bjork, sniff it a bit. So yeah, so actually like not just contemporary art shows, but like something like this wig art, where they like dye and make their own human hair wigs, like something like this, really exciting. Yeah,
all this project sounds very exciting to me. I can't wait to see it in present project and other occasion. And I would like to say thank you to you for joining us in the Colony Kids SOS.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope we work more together.
Yeah,
later.
we should collab together more. And thank you, and see you in the next episode of Colony Kids SOS.